You know what, I'm going to start this review on a slight tangent, but it's relevant, I promise. For a long time, Xenoblade developer Monolith Soft has been known as a shining jewel within the industry, especially in Japan, when it comes to conditions and treatment of game developers and staff. Their company motto is zero overtime and creative work allowed. The zero overtime part is obvious. Monolith Soft discourage overtime as much as possible. Crunch is not commonplace here, unlike the rest of the industry. Overtime needs to be applied for, and if approved, it will actually be paid, another not so common practice in game development. But it's the second part that is a little ambiguous. Creative work allowed. What does that actually mean? Does it mean that developers can just go and dick around if they're getting bored of the tasks they were assigned? Does it mean they can choose to just play around with concept ideas for years and years? It certainly has never seemed that way since Monolith Soft's turnaround, their ability to deliver high quality projects within very reasonable timeframes on very reasonable budgets, is among the best in the industry. With Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition though, I think we are finally seeing this second part of the company motto in action. In a recent interview, Tetsuya Takahashi said that even though the parameters of this project were laid out to the team, namely what would be getting upgraded, what would be getting enhanced, and what would be essentially staying the same, many assets that were not originally planned to be upgraded or rebuilt were done so anyway by developers on the team. This is easy to see in the character outfits. You'll be able to tell which armor sets were remodeled and retextured and which ones were just up-resed. It is pleasing to report though that in terms of the outfits, the ones that haven't had much of an enhancement are few and far between. Most of them have new higher polygon models and new layers of geometry. The entire game follows this trend. Graphically, everything has at least been enhanced, but a lot has also been completely redone, or enhanced further than simple resolution upscaling or slapping on a new texture. It really is a monumental leap over the Wii original. It doesn't just look better and run at a higher native resolution, it also has decent anti-aliasing and other new tech that honestly makes it look like it belongs right next to all the latest Switch games rather than a very rough and jagged Wii game. One of the best looking Wii games, mind you, but still a Wii game. It is also a significant improvement over Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in terms of both resolution and frame rate. Where dynamic resolution was used in XC2 to maintain 30 frames per second, sometimes being pegged to its lowest resolution target in entire zones, like in Moradane during certain weather effects, or the field areas in Uriah, dynamic resolution in Xenoblade Definitive is used only momentarily when the game needs to load a lot of assets, essentially in place of a loading screen, which would likely have to be the only alternative. A number of improvements and optimizations were made to the engine where the dynamic resolution really doesn't need to kick in very often, if at all, to maintain frame rate. The game is a fairly solid 30 FPS with only minor dips during those same momentary points where a lot of assets are being loaded. What this means in gameplay terms is that every now and then you'll notice a very short resolution and frame rate dip before it returns to its normal performance of 720p 30 FPS in docked and 540p 30 FPS in handheld mode. Some of the notable things that haven't been improved or changed very much in Definitive Edition are the animations and the combat. While there are some tweaks to the animations and there are some brand new animations as well, in addition to all the facial animations being redone for the new models, you will notice some dated character animations, particularly when walking, jumping, and swimming. In terms of combat, it remains relatively unchanged, and if there have been any changes, they would be very small tweaks to the AI, if anything. The combat does get some collateral improvement from one of the other major upgrades in Definitive Edition though, and that would be the UI, menus, and HUD, which have all been completely remade. Along with a cleaner, more streamlined look and feel, you have new quest markers and quest guidance, an improved map and minimap with customizable waypoints, combat guidance in the form of markers showing when it's optimal to use an ability, an extensive side quest log that even allows you to keep track of the materials you need to rebuild Colony 6. You can track a specific side quest which will mark collectibles you need both on the map and in the HUD. Time-sensitive side quests now have a marker to let you know they will become unavailable past certain story moments. You can carry your socketed gems over to a new weapon or piece of armor. You are given a bunch of new options when comparing weapons and gear, including one to turn off gem bonuses, and I'm sure there are even more improvements and additions that I'm forgetting. A lot of these things sound very minor, but they really add up and improve the experience over the original a great deal. It was commonplace to play the original with a wiki, walkthrough, or guide perpetually opened next to you, and while you are still in all likelihood going to need a guide for a full 100% completion, it's no longer a requirement if you just want to play and experience the majority of what the game has to offer. While the game has obviously undergone significant transformation both visually and in terms of the quality of life, there was one area that truly needed no improvement, and that's the story. We'll get to Future Connected in a minute, which is a significant amount of additional story content added to the definitive edition in the form of an epilogue, but the original story itself is intact, and for good reason. It's an absolutely fantastic narrative. I've often said that Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, is my least favourite of the 3 Chronicles games, with X coming out on top and XC2 ever so slightly edging out the OG. I never once thought the original was a bad game, it was always fantastic, but I also only played it for the first time after I played both XCX and XC2, so a lot of the uniqueness that made it so fresh and so great 10 years ago was somewhat lost on me because both XCX and XC2 also had a lot of those elements between them. Xenoblade Chronicles X isn't up for debate in terms of my own personal enjoyment and feelings. I still hold it up as the benchmark for open world RPGs, but it is also a different game to both XC1 and XC2, which have a much stronger focus on story and narrative over world building and exploration. So what this really comes down to is whether or not Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition has done enough to overtake Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and if it hasn't, it would be damn near impossible to separate them in my eyes. Both of them have their pros and cons, and both of them do some things better than each other, but at the end of the day, they are both absolutely massive JRPGs with beautiful worlds, wonderful music, and strong, compelling narratives. The Future Connected Epilogue is just the icing on the cake. I think I want to do a standalone video for Future Connected, so I won't go into great detail, but it is an epilogue set 2 years after the events of Xenoblade Chronicles. It focuses mainly on Melia and pretty much fully rounds out her story, which was more or less dropped in the main game towards the end. It never felt incomplete in the original, but there was certainly more they could have done with it, and they proved it here with Future Connected. There is a ton of new voice work in Future Connected, new animations, new characters, new outfits, and the animated cutscenes take full advantage of the engine and direction from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Something I'm explicitly not allowed to show you video footage of, but I am allowed to talk about, are quiet moments. These are essentially Future Connected's version of heart-to-hearts, but they are fully voiced and often contain a great deal of new animation work. It's certainly a glimpse into what the future might hold for heart-to-heart events in the series moving forward. All the original voice actors reprise their roles, there is some excellent side content, the Nopon Pond Spectres are awesome, I really enjoyed the rounding off of Melia's story, and all in all it adds 15 to 20 hours onto an already amazing game that had already undergone significant improvements. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is an easy buy. Despite being lucky enough to get a review code from Nintendo Australia, I still went ahead and bought the collector's edition anyway. Xenoblade Chronicles is quickly becoming my favourite series. If they keep this up, they might overtake Tales. They've already overtaken Final Fantasy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.